Shalom everyone, Yoel here for Hebrew in Israel. So first, as you can see, I'm back home. It took me quite a bit of time to recover because I was in very, very little sleep for multiple days. So this is an update. The reason I'm making this update is because what I was able to do is actually some cooperation with another group and kind of speak with them and see what they've seen. And right now, what's going on is that the other group, led by his name is Brian Heck. We spoke on the phone, and fortunately, you can have background noise here. There's nothing I can do about it. And we spoke quite in length, and I do really, really appreciate the fact that they took the time to speak with me. And right now what they're reporting is that they found a field close to where we were, just across a certain area, so I know exactly where they were, in an area where we were able to find, sporadic small quantities of aviv. Now, like every time we come across this type of information, it's an issue of interpretation, and it's also an issue of opinion. And because I wasn't physically there today when they were there, you can argue anything. I mean, I could have been in the field with them and say I disagree. I could also be in the field and say I agree. And this is always part of the issue, because it's sometimes an issue of interpretation. It's an issue of what you feel, how much of a percentage do you think it is, what do you expect it to be, and so on. So first of all, again, I'm very appreciative of the fact that they took the time, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that they were willing to speak with me. And my main concern here is that we might be going back into what happened in 2016, where the group I was in, we felt that based on the data, it wasn't close. That it was very close, but not enough. And they felt that it was enough, and they found what they felt was evidence. Now, they share with me exactly where the field is and everything, so it's no one's hiding any information here. And I'm conflicted. And the reason I'm conflicted is because, first of all, what they said to me felt very genuine and very compelling. But then, on the other hand, the images that I saw I'm still waiting to see more images, but the problem is that it could look yellow, and this is exactly what we noticed yesterday when we were going around. It could look yellow in an image, but not really be anything. And they asked if they were able to, if they did a percentage and so on, and we discussed the percentage. And from experience, it can get really, really iffy. I've been deliberating on this issue of percentage for about 2 years now, and I don't know how to treat this subject of percentage exactly, because statistical anomalies always exist. So, for example, you can go through, and by the way, they said they weren't cherry picking, and I believe them. Okay, I'm not contesting the data. I'm not contesting the data whatsoever. It's always a question of details. It's always a question of having an opinion and then deciding what the details tell you and how they affect your opinion. And because what I saw in the images and the information they told me, my response was that it's compelling. I didn't say yes and I didn't say no. I said it's compelling. And the reason I say it's compelling is because compelling is a much better way to describe the feeling that I have about this situation. And again, this is a very similar situation that we had back in 2016. And without physically being there, I can't really fully judge this. So right now what's going on is we're trying to see if there's a way that we can go down there, or at least my colleague will go down there and see the specific field, and he will pass on whatever he finds and tells me what's going on. Like every decision in life, you base yourself on whatever data you can find. That's this fact. Since the conversation on the phone, I've been praying to hear from someone else. And this is why, again, it was very difficult for me, the fact that the original group that I was in, we were unable this year to work together. So, if we were able to work together, then we would have been able to maybe cover more space together and so on. But of course, there were real reasons for this to happen. This was not a split or anything. It's just there were technicalities here and there. And I always say I want to work with people. I don't want to work against people and have arguments and so on. I've always been like that. And when someone presents something compelling, I take it very seriously. And this is really how I'm treating this as well. The data that I received is as follows. In the area of Tzomet Re'im, which is an area I was in, on another side of a field that we were in, a field that we did find small quantities of Aviv, there is a large patch based on an image that probably will be published very, very soon. They have to get to a place where they have internet. You can see barley that is in the state of Aviv. When I asked quantities, they wanted to give me a conservative estimate of 50%, 50-50. First of all, 50-50, we've never agreed. We never said 50-50 is enough. We always want something on a higher percentage, always. But I want to say something much more complicated about this. The data that we were able to see, based on multiple fields, and especially Tel Gamma, which is the real teller of everything. You might think you're seeing 50-50. You might be seeing 30-70. You might be seeing something completely different. You might be seeing higher. You might be seeing lower. If I were a farmer, I would not rush to a conclusion. Now, the other side of it as well, this is the same problem of 2016. There is a high probability that in a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, there's going to be plenty of Aviv, massive quantities of Aviv. If I were able to postpone the Aviv search to the last moment, like tomorrow, I would have preferred to do so, because of the fact that things can change dramatically. What are the things which are compelling me to still say that I think we don't have Aviv? 50-50, not cut and clean enough, but we'll be more determined when hopefully one of us will be able to go down there and look. So I'm not contesting that information. I am not contesting the finding itself, by the way. Very important to point that out. I am not contesting the finding. But 50-50, not enough in my book. Also, what exactly do you define as Aviv? That's always a very, very interesting question, because some people would say it's Aviv, some people say it wouldn't, and we've had these debates in the field. But I'm also taking into consideration a lot of weather issues. I have never, in my entire time of doing the Aviv search, have ever had a situation where it rained the way it rained yesterday. And when we had weather like this, for example, back I think in 2013, I think it was, there was no Aviv. We have to take into consideration the fact that we're only now coming out of a drought, and that the ground and the environment is still responding to that. from what I saw, and even if there's a patch, again, I'm trying to be very careful not to contradict myself from last year, 2018, where I pointed out to a patch on Tel Gamma, but the patch back in Tel Gamma was, as far as I remember, way more advanced, meaning the entire patch was completely yellow, and it was very, we're talking about that patch was big. It was at least 3 meters by 3 meters, which they also found something very similar. So I agree with that. It's perfectly fine with what was found there, in my opinion. But the patch I found back in 2018 was way more advanced. More quantities of Aviv. There's at least one more day. Maybe there's more heat there, and it'll rise. The quantities will rise. But again, it's an issue of trust. It's an issue of who do you trust, how much do you trust, and it's always based on trust. By the way, every single time we do something like this, if it's the moon sighting, if it's going around, especially with the Aviv, and I'm sorry my hands are shaking. My hands are getting a little tired from this position, but it's always an issue of trust. And I rather work with trust, and I rather be in a place where I can trust people. But we also have to remember that this is also based on, as I said earlier, on opinions. The information I received sounded trustworthy in the sense of the practical data, of the actual data. I shared this with my colleague. He agrees. It's compelling. The data sounds, the image I sent him said, look, he said to me, look, this is very plausible. However, we also have an idea what's going on in the area, a larger scale type of idea. And the area shows patchy. Not consistent, but patchy. And again, I proposed to my colleague, because we're both advanced degree students, I suggested that we do a much deeper research into agricultural practices, and based on that make much more solid decisions. So right now, compelling, not convinced yet, but very compelling. But again, I have to be very careful. I have to be very careful what I say. I have to be very careful with what I understand. I try to be as truthful as I can with what I present, but again, only human can make errors. And I have to, same way I treat myself, where I can make errors and make mistakes, I have to treat other people in the same way as well. I think that the information, again, like I said, just to cap this up, because I can go in for hours now, because this is, again, the dilemmas that you have. So to cap this up, I think that the claim that there's some Aviv is correct, because we observed the exact same thing. The quantities are still in question, in my opinion. And there's questions of method as well, that we might not necessarily agree with one another how to do certain things. Therefore, right now, I'm not changing my opinion, because I also have a large image of what's going on in the land. But the information is very important, and I hope to get a better picture when one of us is actually physically able to get down there, or hopefully, and this is my even greater hope, that another group, specifically Devorah Gordon, who I truly appreciate as a friend and as a fellow searcher, will be able to determine what she sees as well. assuming that she is going. As far as I know, she is. And hopefully we'll have a much better picture. And we have a much better picture, we'll know. We'll know for sure. But again, this is an issue of presenting what we find. I can see one thing, and you find something else. I do this with research all the time. I go through information as much as I can, then suddenly you publish your research, and someone says, look, there's something you missed here, or this is an interesting thing, or you publish something and then it helps someone else understand. And this is really what we're doing. We're trying to understand to the best of our abilities. So hopefully there'll be more news, more data, more information. We'll be able to make a very precise decision. But like I said yesterday on my original video on the train, based on what I saw, I can't say there's Aviv. However, if the information that was presented today to me is authenticated on the level which is something which is acceptable to our specifics of how we decide, then it can change, and that's really part of the process. And I'm always very, very frank about these types of things, that I don't tell people what to do. I only present what I know. That's really my method. So I hope this is not confusing to anyone, but I felt compelled to bring this up. And again, like I said, I think it's a little bit like a 2016 situation. Some people will see it this way, some people will see it that way. Right now, I think that the patchiness is still very patchy. And if I were a farmer, I probably would not consider this. I would say it's close, but I wouldn't consider it to be yet in that place. I think that's all I can really say for right now. So thank you for joining me. Kol Tov.